Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming. I hope you had a good summer. And since we're getting near the end of summer, please be careful with the school buses. The kids are starting, so that light comes on. Please be very careful on that. Appreciate it. Here we are with the adequate notice of this meeting of the Lawrence Township Council being held on Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022 has been provided through the posting of the annual meeting schedule of said council in accordance with Section 13 of the Open Publics Meeting Act. Said notice was forwarded to the Trentonian, the Times, and the Ledger on December 22nd, 2021. Madam Clerk, may we have inspiration?
May we carry out our work at this meeting in a just, honorable, and sincere manner, always bearing in mind our duties and continuing to keep Lawrence a wonderful community in which to live. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, may we have the roll call, please?
Mr. Bobbitt?
Here.
Mr. Kanagi?
Here.
Ms. Lewis? Here. Mr. Powers?
Here.
Mayor Ryan?
Here. Special proclamations, recognitions, and presentations, none. We have public participation, 5 minutes per speaker, please. Please come up, state your name and your address.
Good evening, Greg Foote, 827 Bunker Avenue, Lawrence Township. I'm a lifelong resident. I come before council for 2 reasons. First, I was saddened to learn on August 3rd that the township gave carte blanche to PSC&G to remove the sycamore trees on Route 1, located south of the Lawrence Shopping Center to the roundabout. What was more disturbing was a social media post by a township official that same day stating that the town just learned the details of the tree removal and it was PSC&G's decision to remove the sycamore trees. This information is contradictory to what I was told by PSC&G on the following day. According to a PSC&G representative, I was told that they did not want to take any of the trees down if Township did not want them to, and that they were given the okay by the Township to remove the trees a couple of weeks ago. Let me repeat that. According to a PSC&G representative, I was told that they did not want to take any of the trees down if the Township did not want them to, and that they were given the okay by the Township to remove them. So not only did the trees not have to come down, but the Township was apparently aware of the tree removing details prior to the social media post. It appears the social media post was misleading to the public. It is my understanding that the administration was notified in November of 2021 about this project. It saddens me that the public was not informed and a public hearing was not held on a project of this magnitude. This is a disappointment. It is also my understanding that PSC&G made a $70,000 right-of-way application to the NJDOT and was granted approval to install the poles, when in fact, DOT does not have jurisdiction over the roadway. The Township has jurisdiction. According to PSC&G, they are trying to get their $70,000 back since the approval was meaningless. I don't understand it. PSC&G had to do a lengthy application to pay $70,000 to DOT for an approval that was meaningless. So they approached the Township for the proper approval, and in one meeting in June with a Township official, they gave carte blanche approval. No application, no fees. I plead with council. This project never should have gotten this far, and I have learned from my government experience, it's never too late to turn back the clock. This whole project is a policy decision, which makes it a council vote, not an administration vote. Stop this project in its tracks. PSC already did. They know that this was a public affairs nightmare. Keep the project on hold and have public hearings with PSC&G and the community. It's the right thing to do. Item number 2, Trenton Block located at 625 Cherry Tree Lane. Last month, a zoning change was recommended and encouraged by Township administration for the location and all of its lots. And in addition, 2 lots of open space parkland owned by the Township. According to the engineering memo that accompanied the administration's recommendations to the planning board on July 15th, the memo states, as part of this process, it was noted that the commercial use has encroached on Township land. According to historical aerial photos, the majority of this encroachment on lot 15 and 16 has existed for over 20 years. If you look at the photographs, lot 15 and 16, they are not small lots. It is evident from the memorandum and the attached satellite photos that it is very clear the business is using Township tax exempt property for storage of materials for sale at that location, And according to historic satellite photos, the commercial use of the township property has been going on for years. How does this not appear to be an illegal use of public property? If I were to set up a lemonade stand on the front of Town Hall, how long do you think I would last out there before I would be told to remove my lemonade stand? No, I'm serious. This is no joke. I don't understand. When the township administration was having discussion with Trenton Block's attorney, the town was made aware of this egregious encroachment. Why was there not a cease and desist order given to the property owner? Instead, the administration rolled out the red carpet and offered to sell the township property to them. It appears that the business has been using the township property tax-free for all these years. How is that fair to the public? I pay taxes on the property I use and pay every quarter, and they're not cheap. I understand no action is being taken because a survey is being done. All of a sudden, we need a survey. But no survey was needed when the administration tried to push through a zoning change in the land sale. There is also a significant zoning violation in the right-of-way that existed at the time of the engineer's memo and still exists today. So here are my questions for town council, and I'll be back at your next meeting hoping for some answers. Is the township going to issue a cease and desist order to stop using the property for commercial gain and remove all stored retail materials from the township property? Is the township going to order full restoration of township property to its natural habitat? Is the township going to recoup what the town would have realized in property tax revenue for the commercial use of all property for all those years? And lastly, please have them remove the building block displays that are blocking the pedestrian right-of-way, and please have them remove the pallets of retail stock that are also blocking the pedestrian right-of-way. These are blatant violations and would not be tolerated in any other part of town. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Come up, state your name and your address, please, for the record. Five-minute limitation, please.
Hi, my name is James Hooker. I live at 713 Bunker Hill Avenue, in the township, obviously. And I came also to speak out against the removal of the sycamores on Route 1 South. If at all possible. I'm not an engineer. I don't know how these things go. However, it really looks like it's more than possible. I have a close-up picture I'll put on Facebook tomorrow. Maybe I haven't had a chance. I did a post on Facebook that was rather long. I understand that it was responded to by the good manager, Nowinski. I haven't seen it because I had to work today. And when I did try to look at it, when I had a moment, I'm terrible with social media. I couldn't find it, and I couldn't find my own post. And that's one of the reasons I try to stay away from it. But the reason why I posted and called no one out but PSC&G and NJDOT was to sort of put it out there as to what my thoughts were, because when I get here, maybe I have a tendency to ramble, like the previous gentleman. I don't have it, all written out. I wanted to put it on sort of on the record kind of thing. But one picture that I didn't post was a pole next to the old pole. And the difference is maybe 6 inches, if that. And we're being told that one of the reasons that the sidewalk, that the trees have to come down is because they're encroaching into the sidewalk. And you can see, take out your ruler and cut into the hillside 6 inches, and there's your 6 inches for your sidewalk. It seems to me that if they want to, they can do it. Furthermore, those poles, which are much more suited for an industrial complex than a residential neighborhood, go soaring above what's left of the sycamore trees. They were cut quite significantly and pruned over the years, I suppose, but I'm told by people who live right there, they're healthy as heck. Look at them today, they're out there over Route 1. And so, there's no need as far as I can tell. From what I understand, I was told in our meeting with the manager, graciously agreed to see me one day when I came by about gas lines underneath. I don't recall that being part of the conversation, That's one of the reasons why I say I'm not an engineer. I don't know what, I don't know if this thing is completely unavoidable or not. But I sure as heck hope it is. And I sure as heck know that the first thing that many of these companies, PSE&G and others do, is just the easiest way, which is grab the chainsaw and cut the thing down. And then, the rest of it be damned. And let's not do that. Let's, like I said in the post, they go up and over above. I got one or two other things to say. And I said, one of these I said in the post, which is over the residents' objections, they expanded this substation to where now it looks like, I don't know, some industrial thing in Louisiana or something. And they did it over residents' objections. Affordable housing will be just down the street, so they get to look at the Acme in the back and the substation in the front. To me, it's not a nice environment. But we did that. And then, as I said, as thanks, they go ahead and run these humongous poles down Route 1 down into Trenton, across over to Hamilton, and Lord knows where they're going. And this is the thanks we get for allowing them to do what they did. And I shared this with the good manager when we sat together. And that's why I'm not pointing fingers at anybody or have anger or whatever at anybody other than, all right, I'll say it, PSE&G for, coming up with such a cockamamie plan, and then go ahead and running these damn poles down after we threw the welcome mat out for them. Then what do they do? This is their answer. This is their thanks. Now, here's the other point that I want to make. Route 1, screening, okay? They're going to screen this thing. Once again, the manager was very kind, shared with me pictures that show trees and all of that kind of thing. You look over there with the naked eye, I don't know where they're going to fit. But I will tell you this, on Route 1 in Princeton, just north of Washington Road, as you come south, you will see to the right a major expansion of PSE&G. I'll wrap it up. Major expansion, okay? Berms, trees that would reforest Yellowstone, okay? This is what they put there on Route 1 where nobody lives. No one lives there. This is an industrial zone, office complexes. This is what they did there. Now here, where people said, we like our sleepy little look, we like our white pines that are over there, we like our shelter and our cleaning, they did nothing of the sort. I don't know whether they will, I don't know where they're gonna find the space, but they did it where people don't live. Let's see if they can do it where people do live. I will wrap up. I just want to say it's nothing personal. I appreciate the township. We'll always remember the township for the purchase with our open space tax dollars. The manager cobbling that thing together with the state, the county, the township to purchase the property abutting the park, Colonial Lake Park, that would have destroyed the park. And you guys saved that, forward looking. We will never forget that. Forever grateful. That's why I say this is not a personal thing in any aspect at all. Just let's see if we can save the sycamores because it looks like they're well able to be saved. Last but not least, look up Jay Watson, Vice President of the Nature Conservancy, who just wrote a column just this past week.
Thank you, Mr. Hooker.
In the Lawrence Gazette on the importance of trees in urban areas, heat islands, etc.
Thank you, Mr. Hooker.
Thanks for giving me a little extra time. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a point of clarification
Yes.
to the manager? It's my understanding that the and I forgot to do this. The red one.
Hold it on.
Okay. It's my understanding that the tree project is on hold while there are conversations going on and nothing is being cut down. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to be clear so that everybody here knows where we are and that there's not action being taken at the moment. And just also as a point of clarification, so we don't get too far down the road, after our last meeting, there was going to be an investigation into whether Trenton Block was using those properties for their business activities, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Another one, is there a survey being done now on the Trenton block?
As I indicated in the last meeting and to all of you, that the first thing that needed to be done was to have title work completed on the land that we own there and Trenton Block's land. So we could, number one, understand how we became owners of this. Number two, confirm that we did not obtain ownership of these lands through open space money. And number three, that they weren't restricted in any way by Green Acres. I ordered that title work on July 28th. On August 19th, I received notification from the title examiner saying that the historical documentation is scarce, that the title examiner on the field is going to have to spend a lot of man hours, and it's going to cost the town about $5,000 to try and come up with the originating documents as to how we became owners of these properties. We have owned them through tax sale certificates, foreclosures, or a variety of other ways, but we don't know. The other aspect of getting title work done is in the hopes of having meet and bounds descriptions, historical descriptions, so we could then have a survey done to confirm the township-owned boundaries, and then take whatever necessary action is appropriate in terms of the evidence that we find on lots 15 and 16. Certainly looks to me as if lots 15 and 16 are our lots. I'd like to confirm it before I do anything else. I'm an attorney, and I'd like to kind of have a sound basis before we take action. It's unacceptable to me if any resident or business is taking our land and using it for their own purposes. It's unacceptable. It came up in this. The reason why we didn't do a cease and desist order is because of the open process that I went through with the developer for a rezoning, which I firmly believed at the time could have resulted in a benefit to the surrounding neighborhoods by pushing the demolishing the building, having that pushed back, having the operations be pushed back further into the land, away from the adjoining property owners, to give them more peace of mind and have a better view from the streets. That was my initial determination. I agreed to nothing. I did not approve anything, but I made the process open like the law requires it. It requires the planning board to have a public hearing and requires the council, after the planning board takes action, to vote on it. All in public. Nothing nefarious was done. Nothing in secret was done. I followed the law, and we had our public hearings, and the residents came out and spoke, and they were heard by the planning board, and they were heard by the council members, and it stopped. It's exactly what's supposed to happen. If I did not do that, if I met with the developers and I said, you know what, not a good idea to me, go away, and they came before the zoning board with their application, or they sold their land to somebody else and they came before the zoning board with an application that was worse than what's presently there, or more disruptive to the people in that area, the first thing that would have come out is, why in the world did Kevin Nowinski not act upon this potential redesign and redevelopment and reinvestment by Trenton Block and Hardscape, so that we could preserve what we have and maybe make it better? I'm stuck. I'm the manager. I have to meet with developers. I have to communicate and signal things to you to trigger the open public process that we all participate. You could shake your head, but that's the process, and it was done in open. And I'll just say this. With regard to the Brunswick Pike and PSE&G, when I go on social media and I write to inform the public, I do so in good faith, in honesty, because this is my community. I've lived here or worked here for 57 years, and I would never, ever put out something that was less than 100% truthful in my personal knowledge. This is what happened. People tend to use the word the township, and that just means everybody. We're all one shared brain. When we found out a couple months ago that PSE&G was doing this work on Brunswick Pike and how in the world it was done, we found out that PSE&G applied to the New Jersey DOT for approval for this work. New Jersey DOT didn't say that's not our roadway anymore. They took the application, they reviewed it, they processed it, and they approved it. Then the work started happening. We can't know what's going on at the New Jersey DOT if they are taking this application and working on it. We found out. Jim Harvey's, our municipal engineer, went out and met with PSE&G when the work started. He met with them. They showed him the trees that are posing a problem in order to continue compliance with handicap egress and use by pedestrians and handicapped persons with regard to the sidewalk. It's not the trees, it's the sidewalk. Jim Parvis is an engineer. He works on facts, he works on common sense, and he works on the law. He indicated, based upon his decision, he thought the trees would have to be removed if we were going to have compliant sidewalks for the pedestrians and handicapped persons to safely walk to the shopping center or wherever they were going to do. You can look at them right now where those poles are. The larger poles are situated where exactly they had to be because of the underground gas lines. That's what we were stuck with. And you can see the line of trees that are in the right of way, and you can see the root system. These are shallow trees. They should have never been planted there 25 years ago. They don't belong there at all. They're shallow rooted, and now they look like they're L-shaped because they're trying to get around the wires. Jim Parvis thought that it was appropriate to remove it. I found out about it. I had a meeting with PSE&G, and we said stop. Jim is maybe making common sense decisions based upon his engineering mind, but he is not sensitive to the potential for residents to be upset by these loss of trees. So we met with PSE&G and we said, look, we have to try and save some of these trees, but we also have to produce a sidewalk that is safe and complies with the law. We had a site review with Jim Parvis, and we saw that there are some where the sidewalk can be extended out where the poles are. So it would be like a design, like a little wiggly design. That's not possible for all of them. You can see it's not, as Jim Hooker said, it's 6 inches and you cut down. Well, you don't install concrete it's more than 6 inches to dig up and install a sidewalk. It's beyond a 6, and it will be right up against the tree roots of several trees. August 19th, Brenda Kramer, I asked her to send out a memo to engage the Shade Tree Committee to go out and review the area to see if they believe that all the trees can be saved or what trees can be saved with regard to understanding the sidewalk work that has to be done. That's all going to take place. So when I write in Facebook and I do these things, I don't know why people jump to the fact that I'm doing nefarious things. It's offensive to me. I would never do that. I work in good faith. You may disagree with my decisions, but I'm not sure why it has to be so adversarial to people that I've known for 25 years. But that's just the way it is right now. So I'm going to continue to try and make the best decisions possible. I'm going to continue to engage with the public and be as honest and truthful as I absolutely have to be. They demand it, and I'm going to comply with it. So that's all I have. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
I would also just recommend that you keep council informed too. Public participation, 5 minutes, please. State your name and address. Phil, come on.
Thank you. I'm Phil Duran. I live at 546 Keith Road. I heard he had an open mic night, so I thought I'd come out.
Sure.
I apologize to the people who are on the planning board who have heard this before, but I thought it should be put before the council. This is an issue about affordable housing that I have come to understand is getting to be more and more of a problem all across the country. And recently, I had a chance to visit a couple of places that really brought it out. I was out in San Francisco, where I saw people taking over the sidewalks with tents, living in their cars. I was in Washington, D.C., where I saw many of the parks filled with people in tents. These are public parks and there people are living in them. And I was down in Mexico City for a couple of weeks and I did not see that down there, which surprised me. Now, I know there are homeless people in Mexico City, but I didn't see them on the streets, in the parks. And I think one of the main reasons for that is that in Mexico City, they have a long history of accessory dwelling units. These are small places for people to live. In the past, they've been used for domestic help. Now, not that many people can afford the domestic help, so they're renting them out. And because they're so small, they're really affordable, and that is helping to keep people from having their tents on the sidewalks. So I looked into it a little bit, and I got some census data, and shows what you all know. The price of housing has just been going up and up. And it's getting to be so that it's so unaffordable for people to buy houses, and as a result, the rents are very high. Also, something that I didn't realize, that in the past, there were more people per household than there are now. So most of the housing stock in Lawrence was built, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 years ago. And at that time, there were more people in each house. Over the years, that has decreased. And that gives rise to folks like me, who are now retired, looking at a big house and saying, I don't really need this anymore. I can't afford the taxes. It's probably time to go to North Carolina or Florida or somewhere. But in general, people don't really want to do that. They would rather stay where they were. They'd rather be able to afford it, but they can't. So my point is, if we consider, as they have in the entire state of Connecticut, and most recently in Princeton, a accessory dwelling unit overlay that essentially gives people who have the ability to have little off-street parking so they don't encumber the streets, give them the right to have an accessory dwelling unit. They could rent that out, they could use it for their kids, they could use it for their parents, and they wouldn't have to go through some of the hoops that I had to go through when I actually did that and converted my garage into an accessory dwelling unit. And it's come in really handy, but it was a big hassle. I'd like to see other people able to do that without that hassle. It would help them pay their taxes, it would help them stay in their house, and it is something we want to think about to avoid what we're seeing in San Francisco and DC and other places. I have some supporting information here that I will leave for your perusal as you wish, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil.
Pass that out.
Please, please come up, state your name and your address for the record. Thank you.
My name is Deborah Dorner. I live at 807 Lake Drive, Lawrenceville, the Lake Drive that nobody knows about, not the Lake Drive that goes around the lake, but the Lake Drive that's on the southbound side of Route 1. I live directly across the street from the Seventh-day Adventist, where these trees are being talked about. And I just want to say tonight that I am a tired resident, a construction-weary noise resident. Because I live at the top of the hill on Lake Drive, directly across from Seventh-day Adventist and the large shopping center and the substation as the crow flies, there has been constant noise. You guys are all aware of all of the work that's been done. Seventh-day Adventist did a renovation on the outside of the building that took a year and a half. They redone their parking lot one summer, then they put in solar panel parking. which was another summer, and a lot of noise. And let me just tell you that every construction vehicle in this town must back up all the time because everything is always beeping, and I'm ready to scream. Then we have the Lawrence Shopping Center that they did the renovation, which is wonderful. They redid the parking lot one summer, and for numerous years, one summer it was the roof of the buildings. I don't even remember what it was, but it was constant noise. Then we had the beautification project resurfacing of Route 1, which is wonderful. It's beautiful, but it was an extended period of time and traffic and noise. And from our street, Lake Drive, you can only turn right onto Route 1. So you have to drive in that traffic, that construction traffic, the circle, everything, which I do happen to love the roundabout. I'm not complaining about that. Then we have the construction of the substation, the poles being put in 7 days a week. I believe they were working one Sunday. Once again, all of their things were beeping. We've had the trees trimmed twice, I believe, because of the work with the poles and the wires. They were out in the spring where I was in my house with earplugs in so I could read a book. Windows closed, it was not summer. Then we had the streets in the neighborhood resurfaced, great, all great. But then our street was torn up by Trenton Water right after the project was done because they couldn't do their project first to make a repair on the street. More noise. And then yet to be done is the beautification project with all of the plantings and the things that are going to happen. And I found out that's next spring. I know there's a bridge replacement in the works. And then the concern and what brought me out here tonight was being so tired and then thinking, okay, now they're going to cut down trees possibly and move sidewalks. More noise. And that part of Brunswick Pike where the trees are is right at the end of my street. And I believe that they may even be a noise barrier to cut down on some of the noise, I hope. Also, one thing I have noticed that the sidewalk that is now, I believe, owned by the township past the Seventh-day Adventist is basically single file walking. You could not handicap pedestrian pass. Two people can't walk next to each other because that area has never been edged. And sometimes you walk through there and the grass is tickling your legs because it's so long. And it used to go all the way around the jug handle that way. I haven't looked at that. I haven't been over that way. My husband was over there and he did measure some 24 to 29 inches wide for the sidewalk. I'm not sure if the Seventh-day Adventist even knows that the trees in front of their property are in question, so I did try to talk to them, but I could not get a hold of the boss. And one other thing that really has been on my mind is the Route 1 Raceway. I know I talked about it before, and the last time I mentioned it was before you guys had taken over our section of Route 1. The speed limits. I don't know if anybody's out there monitoring it, but the noise that we hear, the cars backfiring, the motorcycles, you can tell the motorcycles are flying because you can tell how long it takes them to get from point A to point B. And once again, the cars backfiring, I don't know if this is a trend, but it is. I'm afraid actually that somebody's going to think they're being shot at. I don't know if that's possible, but it's just something that I wonder. And the Lake Drive jug handle traffic light is now a suggestion. You can stop there if you feel like it. It's terrible the amount of people that run that light. And they will do it with pedestrians in the crosswalk because I was one of those pedestrians. So I just want that in mind. Like, we need more speed limit signs. I believe there's one speed limit 35-mile-an-hour sign by the Lawrence Shopping Center.
We had dropped that.
And I don't think there's anything from there to the circle, to the roundabout. And on the northbound side, I don't know of any signs at all, but I think it's really important. And if they're going to take trees out,
Well, they're on hold right now,
yes, I
so,
understand that.
and we will be informed on it.
Okay, so those are just some things that have come to my mind, and it's getting rather hard to enjoy living here right now, year after year. Once again, I also appreciate what you've done for the lake.
Well, we appreciate you at Blackwood.
I don't have any children with me tonight, so you just have to listen to me.
No. Our kids went through Blackwood.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Tom, right?
Yeah, Tom Ritter. Please come up and state your name and your address for the record. Thank you.
My name is Sylvia Kobus, Kobus, 1547 Ohio Avenue. I would like to address the council a couple of issues. Of course, there's the Trenton block, but it's been talked about, so I'm not going to sound like a broken record and repeat all of this.
You
But
don't want to beat a dead horse?
no,
Thanks, Sylvia.
not tonight. But also Route 1 South, the south part of the Route 1 in South Lawrence, all the crosswalks which were created with the beautification, that's wonderful. We love those, but at night you cannot see those signs at all. It's very dark with the traffic coming your opposite way. You cannot see pedestrians at all trying to cross the Route 1. That's one thing. And also, as the previous speaker, the speed limit, I don't think I've ever seen, and I live right behind that CVS, 1900 Brunswick Pike. I don't think I've ever seen a police officer, maybe once going southbound before the new roundabout. I saw a police car there checking speed limits, I assume. So that would be something that we would like to see more, the more of police presence there to slow down the traffic. And as we all know, as we travel certain roads, we learn where the cops like to hide and catch us. So I think with that, it will also teach people to slow down. The 35-mile-per-hour speed limit, I drive there multiple times a day and night. When I drive 35 or below in the right lane, I have cars tailgating me and passing me, and so it's really an issue. And I think there was an accident sometime not so long ago when a person was hit on Route 1 trying to cross. It's so dark. 206 has one of those nice crosswalk signs with the lights when people can light it up. There is one, I believe it's Bergen Street or Bergen Avenue in front of the park, 25 miles per hour, 2 lanes only road, one way going in each way. We have a Route 1, 35 miles per hour speed limit, 2 lanes in each direction, and you cannot see those crosswalks. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sylvia. I appreciate it. I want to tell you that, our police do a wonderful job, and you may not see them, but they're out there. We have undercover, and we can't be everywhere. Honest, I'm out on the road too, and they can't be everywhere at every place. I mean, we could look at it, and I'm sure, Mr. Nowinski, we can look at this. I think we lowered it. It was 50 near Pasmo, and it goes to 35.
It's 30 in some areas. I'll talk to the police chief tomorrow, just so everyone knows. This is, if I'm thinking of the right area, this is where the streetscape is going to be.
Correct.
Where there's going to be lighting and lighted cross walks and that whole thing. It's been going on for 16 years. I get
It's-
the frustration.
It's a work in progress.
But hopefully by one calendar year, it will be a completely different, better pedestrian friendly, safer area.
Thank you.
And that's,
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
can I ask a quick question of the manager?
absolutely.
Because I know that the lowering of the speed limit only occurred once we took ownership, which
Correct.
wasn't that long ago.
Right.
And as we do that streetscape piece, has there been, and we're gonna put up more signage for the speed limits, has there been any consideration to doing some of the ones that track your speed? Not the movable ones, but they now have the ones that say it's 35 miles an hour and then it actually posts how fast you've gone. Because those can oftentimes help slow people down because they don't realize that they're still going 45 miles an hour.
I think it's a great idea. I'll talk to the chief about it. You know, we years ago, you know, we had police there in that area
Mhm.
present and traffic enforcing, and the Latino Alliance group, along with a bunch of pastors, filed a complaint that we had several meetings to discuss why our police are focusing in on that area as we greet motorists from Trenton. And so we kind of had to retract from that area. And now here we are back again, wanting more presence. So it's really difficult line to draw.
Well, and I think the circumstances have changed. We changed the
Yeah.
speed limit. People need to be aware of that. We need to
But,
be careful to make sure that our police are, you know, doing what we know that they do, which is being responsible and all of those other pieces. But I think there are other traffic safety tools like the sign I mentioned that can be useful, and I'm perfectly happy to continue that conversation offline.
Good idea.
Mr. Ritter. Please state your name and your address for the record. Thank you.
Is anybody in here as cold as I am?
It is cold. I forgot my.
That was the point. No,
Got it.
no, as it gets crowded, it gets warmer.
Am I kidding? My name is Tom Ritter, and I live at 747 Lake Drive. And I don't want to beat the dead horse either, but just one more point on trees. We all love trees. It seems to me that if trees were taken down on Brunswick Avenue, it sort of is in the face of the cityscape project and the island in the middle and so on and so forth. Seems to be going in the opposite direction in that area. I don't know what the plans are for the rest of that project. I hope it involves trees somewhere. That's all I wanted to say, and just leave you with Shel Silverstein's The Giving Tree. We used to read to our children when they were small. If you don't know it, look it up and read it.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a comment?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Ritter.
Important to just say this in this meeting is that PSE&G has pledged, number one, the problem that happened with Jim Parkes is no longer going to happen. I'm going to be the person that's going to receive information when it has to deal with trees coming down. That's not going to happen again. But PSE&G has pledged the trees, any tree that's taken down, they will be replaced with more appropriate trees. Now, it's not the same as what we see now, but we can't make decisions just based upon the present, like right now. We can worry about future generations, and we don't have to make the same mistakes. And when we have these opportunities, and the Brunswick streetscape is going to include trees, it's going to include plantings, and it's going to include pedestrian lighting. And when we have this opportunity where if we're losing these mature trees that are clearly should not have been there and are posing a problem, and we have this opportunity to replant trees by engaging shade tree, which we're doing. If anything needs to be removed, they will be replaced by maturer trees that the shade tree committee thinks is appropriate for the area. It has to do with the lines and all that type of stuff. So thinking short term isn't really, I think, the appropriate thing. We all see in our community trees that line our roadways are in the shape of an L or some kind of crazy shapes to avoid the lines. Those were mistakes that were made 25 years ago. And we shouldn't keep doing it or trying to preserve it. We've got these opportunities to think for the future and future generations. And that strip of roadway, that's an opportunity to do things right. And so I just want people to know that. And the last comment I'll make is there's not been one single positive comment about PSE&G's commitment to this town and this community to improve its infrastructure, improve on the delivery of power, improve on reducing power outages that happen throughout the year, and specifically in winter, on winter storms. We're lucky to have a public utility committed to improving our power system and delivery. People need it. Could be life-saving situations for some people. So in that respect, we've seen a public utility that didn't invest in its infrastructure. Trenton Waterworks, we see it. Years and years and years of not putting anything into this community to improve the delivery of their service, which is water. We've got PSE&G that is saying we're ready, willing, able, and we're doing it. And yeah, things are different. I mean, technology changes, the poles are larger because their engineers have determined that they will better withstand, carry the lines higher above people in the activity, withstand the storms. Change happens. And let's not forget that we all need power, right? And the substation has been there for decades. It expanded. It's not over. It's not completed. Let's all reserve judgment on how those plantings will be completed. And then if it's not good, it's not good, but we all need power. So, just something to think about. It's nothing but negative about the poles and about the substation and about improving the power that's delivered to our residents, but there are positives for it. And I know I'm pontificating and I apologize.
Councilman Bob, did you want to say anything?
No, I'm fine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely.
I really hadn't planned on talking. My name is Virginia.
Come on up and to the mic and state your name and your address, please, for the record. Thank you.
I did not plan this, so I do not have a list, and I hope to be brief. My name is Virginia Bogutsky. I'm on 16 Hillsdale Road in Lawrence. While I'm not directly at the lake, I consider it my park. I love it, and I walk down there all the time. A couple of just points I'd like to click off. We're worried about the sidewalks with those trees. I've walked this town for 35 years. May I say, the sidewalks in this town are not in good shape. I have fallen a number of times. I am concerned about handicap access, but the fact that we're worrying about a few inches and trying to save trees. Take a look at some of the other sidewalks in this town. There's gaps like this when you walk. So number one. Number two, no tree is perfect. No tree is beautiful like this. These trees have been in our town for a number of years. Excuse me. I do love my trees. I walk this town, like I said. I talked to the guys that were cutting down these trees this spring. The workers, these workers, not across the board, and I can't name them because they'd get into trouble, but many of them said they were cutting down healthy trees that did not need to be cut down. For every 3 trees that were cut down, 1 might have been diseased. But a number of these workers said they don't need to come down. They are healthy, mature trees. Yes, some of them had limbs hanging over. They needed to be cut. I don't want anybody hurt by trees falling on them. But the workers told us, as we walked, that they felt they were cutting down unnecessary numbers of trees. And finally, about the new project on Texas Avenue, that does more impact me because I come down Glen Avenue. I walk down Glen Avenue now, and I see trees. Not perfect trees, but they're trees. Pretty soon, I'm going to see
a desert scape, really. It's going to be buildings eventually, and we will have small trees, but not in my lifetime. Those trees are not going to be big in my lifetime. They're going to be little. And I walk up Texas Avenue and I see this, anyway, the power station, again, hideous. And the gentleman who said about that Princeton power station, I drove by that the other day. And yes, PSE&G should look to that when they put the trees and do the furnishing around it, because that, you can almost not see it from Route 1. But ours, you're going to see.
Well, it's not done yet.
Well, I know, spring, of course, but as another person said, not much room there. So anyway, thank you for your time, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hijack
No,
something.
thanks for
but
coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. No worries. Anyone else for public participation? All right, we're going to move on to review and revision of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to add H13, disposal of township property chairs to the agenda. Everyone has them on their desk.
Second.
Mhm.
Mr. Bobbitt,
Yes.
Mr. Kaneki,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Powers,
Yes.
Mayor Ryan.
Yes. Adoption of minutes of previous meetings. None.
A
Is
lot.
that a promise?
That's a promise.
All right.
Award
Came
and
through with the mics.
or rejecting of bids.
Make a motion to move 9A, number 272, authorizing awarding bid number 2206, 2022 road improvement program to Richard T. Barrett Paving Company, Inc.
Second.
This is all a part of our road improvement program, and the amount of the award was $608,447.
Mr. Bobbitt,
Yes.
Mr. Kaneki,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Powers,
Yes.
Mayor Ryan.
Yes. Public participation on this. We don't-
Mr. Mayor, we already voted on it, so it's.
Oh, sorry.
It's over.
Induction of ordinances.
Make a motion to move 10A, ordinance number 2431-22, an ordinance amending section 400, general regulations and permitted modifications, Article 4, zoning district regulations.
Second.
This ordinance is a change of our land use ordinance to prohibit the sale of firearms within 1,000 feet of public or private schools or houses of worship.
Mr. Bobbitt,
Yes.
Mr. Kaneki,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Powers,
Yes.
Mayor Ryan.
Yes.
No, you're right. Doesn't get you right.
Adoption of ordinances. Manager's report.
Well, I did indicate before the meeting that we're doing the test run of our new system to
Yeah.
the OWL. Seems like it's
Yeah.
working pretty good. I'm maintaining it over here just so everybody knows in case there's a problem. I hate looking at myself when I'm talking, but that's, I'll deal with that. Hero Dog Park is going out to bid. It went out to bid last week. We expect bids to be received for September 8th, and we hope to have a contract for your consideration for the September 20th council meeting. As you all hopefully have seen, the World War I memorial in the front of the municipal building has changed. We have taken out the large bushes that seemed to have blocked did block the front of our municipal building, losing its character. And we do plan on continuing the improvements around there with landscaping and lighting. And there is going to be an issue with regard to the eagle that rests atop that municipal or that memorial. And I've asked before we do anything to have the Historic Preservation Committee be involved in that process. We've worked on it, I think, a couple times over the last 20 years to preserve it, but it seems like it's at a point where it needs to be retired and we have something new in its place. As you know, we've been dealing with this West Windsor warehouse situation, and I issued, based upon our conversations and your instruction, I issued letters to both the county and New Jersey DOT to request a seat at the table to participate in their process for the necessary improvements that must take place before that warehouse campus becomes a reality. The approval by the West Windsor Planning Board was contingent upon both the NJDOT's approving an additional entranceway onto US Route 1, as well as some substantial changes to the county roads on Quaker Bridge Road and what is the other road?
Clarksville Road.
And they're substantial. We were able to meet with the county executive and the county staff who did not receive a completed application from the developer, and so they were not in a position to opine whether or not it was going to be acceptable or not. But they did indicate to me their continued cooperation with allowing me and Jim Parvis and a traffic expert that we plan to engage to participate in the process because this is all about the traffic when it comes to our community. It's going to be devastating. New Jersey DOT reached out to them. I have not received a response in terms of dates, but I did include Senator Turner on our communication, and she did respond back to me that she will absolutely participate and wants me to keep her informed of when the meetings are, because she wants to advocate on behalf of our community with regard to its potential devastating effects. Finally, one thing, Kathleen, I think that you're, Ms. Lewis, I think hopefully you're going to be really happy with, is one of the things that we envisioned about our community aid and having somebody here to be a point person for new businesses and present businesses was to have a business manual in place. So new businesses or present businesses are able to have access to a 27-page business manual that will give new businesses all the information they need about our community, about what the different departments are, about what the process is, all kinds of stuff. Mr. Dinwiddie prepared an excellent document. And I'll share it with you. There's one or two revisions that we wanted to make. I'll send it off to you in the coming days. So I think it's going to be a really good resources for even new businesses that are thinking or potential business thinking about coming to Lawrence. They're going to see that we are a community that is going to be there for them and provide resources to them and provide assistance and develop. So I think it's going to be a pretty cool document to finally.
Great.
Talked about it for 4 or 5 years, and now with Mr. Dinwiddie on board, we're able to do these extra things. So
He was
pretty
just
excited
here.
about that.
He's not here for
Oh,
your
he
little
is-
shout out.
He's actually
looking.
Oh, he's
the guy that's
looking,
in-
that's
in the other
right.
room.
He's the guy.
He's looking.
We
Good
can
job.
wave to him right now with regard to that. I think that is it. Thanks. So,
Also, Kevin, I had got a text from Assemblyman Borelli on the communitynews.org. If you check that out,
great
he's
article by him. Yeah.
a really good article on the warehouses. He's supporting against the warehouses. So check that out, communitynews.org.
I think it's a personal opinion. I think they have a long way to go before this
I
becomes
hope so.
anywhere near a reality. What they need to change in terms of the roads, and that's where our fight is in advocating for
Yes.
our community, is that.
Councilman Bobbitt?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say as the councilor liaison to the Growth and Redevelopment Committee, it's great to hear that this is finally coming out. I know that the committee has been working with Mr. Dinwiddie, who comes to our meetings with the blessing of the township manager, So it's been a real sort of invigorated the committee, and so it's nice to see that the fruits of the combined labor are coming to bear. So
Thank you. He's really good.
One last thing I want to say is that our police chief is retiring, as you all know, September 1st. We will be announcing a new police chief in the coming days. And stay tuned with regard to that.
Very good. Good. Mr. Roscoe's attorney's report.
I'm going to reserve most of my comments for closed session, Mayor, but I wanted to remind everyone that Quaker Bridge Mall sought approvals for what was projected to be a huge expansion, and this is going back some years now.
Mhm.
They peeled back and they only did a small portion of what they were proposing. DOT had a laundry list of improvements that had to be made in connection with that proposed expansion. And it would be good to get that list only because, you know, traffic is traffic. And I sure hope the work list doesn't get shorter now that there's some other proposal which would generate just as much, if not more, traffic. Part of the problem with tractor trailers is they're queuing too. I mean, these are 60-foot vehicles. They create different needs on the roadways. And I'm sure hiring a traffic expert is going to help us. But I don't think anybody should forget the laundry list that DOT wanted should Simon have built out the mall, you know, as it projected.
That's a very good point. Could I ask, I'm sure if they produced a laundry list, the engineering department has it somewhere from the old planning documents. Could we,
It's been a while.
I know, but could we take a look for it and share that with county planning as well as with Senator Turner and Assemblyman Varelli and Verlina Reynolds Jackson, so that they have that when they're having those discussions?
We'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it, Mr. Roscoe's?
Until closed session, Mario.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
I have nothing.
She has a new microphone. She has something.
Yes, come on. Two.
We do have 2 new microphones. They're finally here.
Thank you.
Unfinished business. New business. Move on. We have public participation, 3 minutes. Please come up, state your name and your address. Thank you.
Martha Friend, 976 Lawrenceville Road. I'm here because of the ordinance prohibiting the sale of firearms, and I want to thank council for, I'm not sure if it's passing tonight or just talking.
Introduce.
It's
You
just
have to do
introduction.
two. You have to introduce and then.
Thank you for writing it and introducing it. As you recall, a couple meetings ago, there's definitely, and even still now, there's real concern and misinformation out there about what's happening with Kulak. Apologies if I'm not saying it correctly, arms, and moving into 7-Eleven. And so actually, my question here is how the public might go about getting information about, especially situations like this, selling of weapons in town. How do we get information about these situations? I know that Tim, a resident here, first brought it up at a council meeting. I was unaware that they had purchased that old 7-Eleven. And then he was struggling to get information from council, maybe because you guys weren't sure. So he had sent a couple emails. And so then I was in conversation with him. People are asking what's going on, or, you know. And so actually I just called Rich at Kulak Arms and asked him what his intention was. And he clarified that they're not going to be selling guns in this new store. It's not what it's about, which was great to hear, and I thanked him for that. Can I just say one more? That's what he told me. No? Okay.
I don't want to think about you continue, and I'm going to
Okay.
clarify any misinformation.
Okay.
Kevin, she has another minute.
So I assume that his store out of his home, which I think he told me he only sells, he doesn't have sell in his building, but it's internet business. But he's grandfathered it. That store, I assume, is grandfathered in terms of this
Correct.
because, okay, that was just what I wanted to clarify.
Okay, so let me just give you
Yeah,
some
yeah.
information, maybe I will yield back my time to you. So Kulak Arms has been operating out of his home in a basement. It's a business which is allowed under the ordinances, okay? Firearm sales is regulated by the state and it's a lawful enterprise, right? And so it's not an internet business. It is a business that it's a store that you can go to. It's got business hours and it's been there since 2016 without any issues from anybody. 95% of his client base are law enforcement officers. This new endeavor of his is designed purposely to more prominently sell uniforms to officers and other law enforcement officials and I guess public works officials and things like that. So it's predominantly going to be clothing and equipment related to law enforcement officials with the sale of firearms at that location behind an area, a designated area, which no one is allowed entry. If you look at the state laws to determine that there's no walking in and out of these places without being of the correct age, and there's no handling of the firearms in the store or anything like that. So there is absolutely the intention of firearms, but it's not going to be the predominantly. The store at his home is almost exclusively firearms. So he's expanding to apparel and uniforms.
So that's a shame because he told me twice, no firearms are being sold.
I don't.
Can I?
Yeah, I don't
Right.
see that
So,
happening. I don't
and
see that happening.
I
Martha.
just want to talk about the timeline from the council piece as well, because I think that that's important. Is that it was to, I think, everyone's shock up here and to lots of other people's shock across the state, there was an assumption that the federal gun act that prohibits guns anywhere within 1,000 feet of the school also extended to sales. It did not. And so we were stuck in a place where a permit, because it was a legal, authorized, already federal, state regulated use, had already started that process. And so when we introduce an ordinance, it affects everything moving forward. And so now we can do that. I have also had, and I say it's statewide, it's a statewide misconception, because I have had several conversations with state legislators to make sure that they are aware that this is a loophole. And so we are going to work to address that as well. Because most people were under the same impression that everybody else was that when the feds say you can't have a gun within 1,000 feet of a school, then you clearly can't sell one, because that would make sense. But laws don't always make sense. And so we are doing what we can to make sure that we reduce the impact that any existing use would have, and also make sure that this is not a problem in the future.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Orange Township does not have a land use ordinance prohibiting sales of guns in this township. Tonight's introduction is going to stop that. Okay, we're telling them where they can go, just like we did with the drugs. Okay, that's what's going to happen with this when it comes back up. I was in Mr. Kulak's new building. All right, and when you walk in the doors to the new building, there's a wall on the right-hand side. You will not see the guns. Everything else that's out there is uniform for first responders and everything. That's what you're going to see when you go in there. To get through that door on the right when you're in that building, you have to have a permit. He has such security in there. It's almost as good as the drug place up there on Route 1 where you try to break in. He has excellent security. I was in his new building, and it looks fantastic. And it looks very safe, in my opinion.
So I appreciate that. And I know
Oh, and he will be selling guns in the new building.
well, next time you talk to him, tell him a resident and a neighbor.
Yeah,
I live
no,
just
I
a couple
will.
blocks
I'll
away
talk
from
to
him.
him.
It's super disappointing. I called and asked him outright, and he assured me, no,
he's not selling guns at that
I wouldn't
store.
know
And
if
I
I
shared
ran
that with
into-
other people.
Yeah.
So now, so then I kind of go just back to, I'm sorry, back to the other question of like, so I'm not sure if you had this information before, it seemed like council weren't sure, but how do, it feels like there's a lot of crazy that, well, now I know that they're selling guns there. Before I thought, well, I could assure people they weren't selling guns there. How can we more easily get that information into the public? Clear communication, which seems also some of this concern with trees and such, is also allowed. I don't know what you're allowed to do, if you're not allowed to share certain things, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's, Martha, it's a lawful enterprise and it's regulated by the federal government, the state government, and permitted by municipal laws. And not to get too far into it, and Dave Roscoe, as a municipal attorney, could chime in if he feels like he wants to. But this law that we're passing right now is not a law that is around in many municipalities, and it's not been proven to be legal by our courts because there's no empirical data whatsoever that suggests that the location of the sale of firearms within a school district poses any greater risk at all. And you need that. It's called, what is the word? Rational basis to it, okay? But we're doing it because it sends an important message. And gun shop owners will not come here and even think that they're gonna do it. So it's gonna be effective unless somebody challenges it. That's just the legal part of it all. I have to tell you, I'm really concerned about your representation, and I don't think that you're being untruthful at all. But Rich has every plan to do it, so what a weird short-term situation to have a conversation with somebody and say, I'm not going to do it, when the plan from the very beginning, from the very, very beginning was to do that. So it's really,
Well,
there's going to be a disconnect. I
I
think there's going to be a
assure you, I'm
disconnect.
not lying to you.
No, and
And
I've told you that.
I'm not questioning, I'm not
Yeah.
saying, let's get rid of his
Yeah.
business, and
Yeah,
knowing
no,
New
I
Jersey
know.
has very strict laws.
No.
I'm just saying, there were folks who heard that he was moving into that 7-Eleven building, people didn't know that. Is he gonna sell more guns there? That's a concern. Just, of course, more guns being sold anywhere, even if they're safe, behind a wall. Some of us not into that. So my final question, then I'll sit down, is, I assume because it's still his business, this ordinance doesn't affect him even at 7-Eleven.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Correct.
Right.
Can I
Thank
just,
you.
I just want to clarify, I want to go back to Martha's question, because I think that there's a much simpler answer to just the basis of your question. Anything that is within the guidelines of the township, the existing guidelines, for instance, this gun shop, because there was nothing that prohibited it. Anyone walks in, pulls a permit, and there's not a public process that goes along with that, because that's a process. The same way if you want to have an event at a park, you go and you say, I want to have an event at a park, I'm renting a pavilion. There's not a public process to those things. That is up to the people who are doing it to share that information. If it is outside of that process, if there is a variance that is needed, if there is a question that is needed, then that is a public, transparent process that occurs either through zoning or planning or a committee or one of those places. Those are the differences. There are always going to be things that occur. And I think that when this particular one came up, council didn't know because there was nothing out of the ordinary from a legal ordinance standpoint.
Yeah, it was zoned appropriately,
And
and there was no change.
Correct.
Correct. And so that
We
is.
weren't aware.
And so that is what, to your point, if it is something that is within normal, acceptable bounds, you just have to ask and people will find out.
And I'll
But
assume I
there's
get
not
the
a
correct
public
information,
process.
but that didn't work this time. I'll be calling him back.
Thank you, Martha.
Yeah, call them back.
I'll call him.
Anyone else? Come on up, state your name again and your address.
Greg Flitty, 27 Bunker Hill Avenue. I'm getting something, I gotta ask this question. So who processes gun applications for the township?
The Lawrence Township Police Department?
And doing it?
I think a lieutenant does. You think I'm gonna say Richard Kulak, I'm not. He's he's a civil employee that works in the application process, but he is not presented, does not interact with anybody that's seeking a permit. It's under the guise of either a sergeant or lieutenant.
So he doesn't handle any permits.
No, that's the wrong thing to say. That's inaccurate when you just said that. He does handle applications. He's not the person in charge of it, and he does not deal with the public, but he assists in the processing of it,
Gun applications.
of gun applications.
That's all I have.
Yeah, okay.
Gee.
State your name again and your address, please.
Deborah Dorner, 807 Lake Drive, Lawrenceville, New Jersey. And I'm talking to you as a mother and a former public school employee, Lawrence Township public school employee, who has sat in lockdown with children for fear of this child's parent. We have hid, we have missed our lunch, and we have gone through the lockdown process, practiced with these children many, many times. Once for real. All of the proper usage of the sale, all of the security in that building, all of those good things that he may be doing, please, when you make your decisions about rules, think about what's gonna happen when that gun walks out of the building and all of that security is done. Is it a guarantee that that person is buying that gun for the proper usage? And think of those children close at Notre Dame, and sometimes I think Slackwood might even be closer. I'm not sure.
It is.
I used to walk over to 7-Eleven and get coffee once in a while, and it only took me a minute to get there. But as a mother and a former public school employee, think about those things. Think about those children hiding in corners. It's awful, and they're babies, and they don't understand.
Thank you. Anyone else? Can I get a 18A? Can I get a motion for 18A, please?
I will make a motion to move resolutions 18B 1 through H13 in a block.
Second.
Mr. Bobbit,
Yes.
Mr. Kaneki,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Powers,
Yes.
Mayor Ryan.
Yes. Council initiatives and liaison report, none. Written communications,
Mayor,
oh, I'm sorry.
we did, historic preservation did meet.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
They did have two applications. And Shade Tree did have an unofficial meeting. We didn't have a quorum due to vacation scheduled, but David Bosted, the Shade Tree Chair, was there. We did have a number of members of the public that did attend the meeting. There was an issue regarding the street sidewalks that we had approved for Craven Lane. There was a resident on Craven Lane that was concerned about his tree, and I talked to the manager about that. And we did have residents from Colonial Heights come to the meeting to express their concern about Trenton Block. And Nancy Alvinson agreed to allow the Shade Tree folks to use her backyard to look and see if there are any types of specimen trees or anything they could observe when they look into the area over there. And then for Brunswick Avenue, as the manager did say, Shade Tree will conduct a survey of the Brunswick Avenue sycamore trees and report back for their September meeting. Thanks, Mayor.
Very good, thank you so much. Anyone else?
Yes. Patriotic Committee for the 9/11 will take place at Lawrence Road Firehouse where the memorial is on 9/11. We're setting it up. We're at our final stages of arranging everything for that day.
Do you know the time, Jim?
Nah, Nancy has to get that. I forget the time.
Okay.
I don't remember. I think we had to be there by 8:30 and everything. Because we were there when the first, we take a break when the first plane hit. So I thought it was 8:30, but I'm not sure.
Written communications, none. All right, motion for go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Somebody.
I was waiting.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. Really appreciate it. Be safe going home. And don't forget about the school bus. If the kids starting.
Please give me a count for the next 5 minutes.
Okay.
I'm calling him right now. I mean, it's his business, he'll probably close it.
I'll talk tomorrow if you don't mind calling. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
You better go back. Hey, you still got it?
Yeah, you did good.
Personally, that's what I would. I would like, where are we at?
Donna. Have fun transcribing this one.
The last three.
No, I'm just saying.
Oh, my God.
Our section's gonna be like nothing happened.
Counselor Box just went to.
That's still, is that still on?
Hey, Kevin.
Go to the-
Are we off?